Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of our Malicious Compliance. In today's episode, the bill was itemized as per your request, sir. Crazy boss tries to make me work more than anyone, but doesn't want to pay me accordingly. Management complies with employees' demands. Before we get started, make sure to subscribe so you will never miss a video. So let's get started. The bill was itemized as per your request, sir. Disclaimers: long-time lurker, first-time poster. Details kept relatively vague to protect the identity of all parties involved. Some details also changed as some coworkers are on Reddit. See Edit 2 for Mr. Nutty's healthcare/financial status. Background: I used to work in a public hospital's public relations, PR, department, read, the department where all sorts of miscellaneous *T and nonsense is sent to when no one wants to figure out who issues should be sent to, or just want problems sent somewhere. It was hard to manage the workload with a yes-man PR director at the helm, who typically acceded to most requests for help, especially after other staff tacked on their go-to-flimsy excuse of, it's related to a patient, so PR should handle it, or flattery, you guys are really good at dealing with this, we just mess it up so it's for the best if PR takes over. Besides the PR department, there was a medical case management department that dealt with more difficult cases involving legal, highly complex medical, or multidisciplinary cases. Due to the nature of our work, sometimes cases were bounced between the two departments. This case was partially dealt with by me, but the malicious compliance is on my coworker's end. Cast: Cynthia, Medical Case Department Director. Joel, Medical Case Department Staff. Sarah, Finance Department Staff. Me, your friendly PR wage slave. Mr. Nutty, patient, retiree with no income. Story: This case happened almost a decade ago and does not take place in the United States of America. Mr. Nutty underwent surgery, everything went well, and he left the hospital after a few days to recuperate at home. There, he combed through the bill, called the hospital about an apparent billing error, and was transferred to my line. For confidentiality and simplicity, let's call the item in question organ transplant. Mr. Nutty said that he didn't have an organ transplant, and only had a couple of medical items inserted. At this point, he was still fairly pleasant. I assured him I'd call him after checking. As this was basically a non-emergency case, the finance department and the surgery department took about a fortnight to gather the details and figure out what happened. In the meantime, Mr. Nutter had started sending emails by the end of the first week asking when he was going to get a refund, which I strangely enough had no recollection of promising. Every time he sent an email, company policy dictated that I was to get in touch with him. By the time finance gave me all the details, I could recognize his email address and phone number when they appeared on my screens, and he was getting rather testy. I contacted Mr. Nutty and told him that he was correct, there was no organ transplant. The organ transplant was actually a billing code name for a package that usually consisted of a lot of items that were used in his surgery, including the medical items inserted. The surgery department knew of his financial situation and, to help him trim costs, essentially gave him a package deal instead of billing him per item, which would have cost him much more. This triggered something in Mr. Nutty and he went ballistic. Shouted that a public hospital running on taxpayers' money should be more honest, that it was the principle rather than intent that was important, and demanded that we change the bill to accurately reflect everything that was used in the surgery, no exceptions. Even telling him that it was likely to be much more expensive did not deter him from following his principles. I was still relatively new to the job then, so I informed Mr. Nutty that I would have to speak with someone else to see if his request could be granted, and ended the call. It was at this point Cynthia came up to me and asked if I was all right. She was passing by as the conversation was ending, and hung around as I was obviously upset and shaken. I shared what happened and she very kindly told me to pass the case to her department as they were more familiar with such cases and it would be pretty easy. I didn't hesitate to say no as I was sick of Mr. Nutty by then, and called him a day or so later to tell him that Joel was taking over his case. Thereafter, I did not hear anything about this issue from Joel, Cynthia, or Mr. Nutty, and forgot about it until 5 years later. A major reorganization took place 4 years after the case came in. Cynthia and Joel left, the medical case management department was closed, the PR department merged with several others and now manages even more **T. One fine day, Sarah, from the finance department, calls me about a patient who claims to have spoken with the PR department staff and medical case department staff of your about a billing error that was left unresolved, although she couldn't be sure since the patient was insisting that spoke to Cassandra, Gordon, and flying off birth ID, and that he had never heard of Cynthia, Joel or me when Sarah tried to confirm if they were talking about the same staff. After an archaeological excavation of the archives and patient records, we discover that it is Mr. Nutty calling about the same issue, with a twist. Apparently, when Joel reached out to Mr. Nutty, he tried to explain that he would be facing substantial losses if we were to follow his instructions in itemizing the bill. Mr. Nutty simply would not take no for an answer and scream-preached his ears off. Mr. Nutty also threatened to go to multiple government departments to tell them about the hospital's illegal actions, and apparently later did go to at least a couple. Here I have to admit that Joel was a much more professional worker than me, and was typically a calm, steady rock who could take a lot of rubbish and still walk away without wanting to commit murder. Or at least not admitting to wanting to commit murder. Mr. Nutty must have deliberately picked all the bad route options he could, and more, because I had never seen Joel doing anything similar in the 4 years I worked with him. Typically, when faced with such requests, Joel could, and would, escalate the issue to Cynthia with the recommendation to ignore the case or request after giving an official reply via letter. Cynthia would usually agree as long as it was a morally correct choice and there were no legal or medical repercussions. Joel did not do that in this case. Joel opted to follow Mr. Nutty's request to the letter. He told the surgery department what happened. Pissed off that their goodwill had been spat and trampled upon, surgery department agreed with the changes and looped in finance to make sure every single item used was listed, individually. No more packages or cost-saving efforts for Mr. Nutty. It turned out that the organ transplant was not the only billed item that was actually a package deal, so Mr. Nutty's bill came up to nearly double his original cost. Mr. Nutty was not happy when Joel returned with the shiny new bill. He refused to pay the bill, and continued to harass and threaten Joel off and on for about a year or so, but eventually went quiet. Back to the present day. I asked Sarah why Mr. Nutty was calling years later, and apparently it was because the debt collection agency had found him. Mr. Nutty had moved and did not update his particulars as he skipped his medical appointments as well. At the hospital, if bills go unpaid for some time, they go to a debt collection agency, which relies on the information provided by the hospital system. After all these years, Mr. Nutty finally came back for a checkup, and had to provide updated details. the debt collection agency caught wind of this and started the collection process again. Somehow, I managed to dig into my well of by then nearly non-existent compassion and asked Sarah if there was any way to reverse the changes. Sarah cackled and pointed out that because of the universal health coverage available, Mr. Nutty's medical bill was initially 80% covered, in part thanks to the particular package codes, like organ transplant, the surgery department used. However, after his request, only about 30% of his new, more expensive bill was covered. The best bit? All such bills go to the government, and only one change is allowed, unless the hospital admits it was their mistake, in which case there may be penalties. This is to prevent hospitals from changing the bills willy-nilly, and to save administrative costs. Amazingly enough, one of the governmental departments Mr. Nutty complained to about our illegal actions was the same department in charge of handling universal coverage for hospital bills. So not only did the government department in charge know about his not-too-intelligent demands, they also knew that we had tried to help him but changed the bill to comply with his request. And there was absolutely no way the hospital was going to take a penalty on Mr. Nutty's behalf. It was with great, unbridled joy that I made the final phone call to Mr. Nutty. He didn't recognize me, but I had the extreme pleasure of informing him that I was the first staff who spoke with him 5 years ago. Didn't he remember, screaming at me? No. Oh, not to worry, it was a long time ago. Oh, it's not that it's a long time ago, you just thought it wasn't worth remembering all our names, because we're just customer service staff, you say? Huh, all right. Smiley face. After that, I didn't bother with further niceties or small talk and went straight in for the kill, telling him that we could not change the bill again as it could only be changed once. Surprisingly, he didn't flip at once and even asked for the reasons. I explained how we, Sarah and I, dug through our archives and the sequence of events. There was a long silence, and just as I was getting worried about whether he had passed out, Mr. Nutty erupted, shouting about it being a pack of lies. We were dishonest, he was a retiree with no money, how could we do this to him? Why did we make the changes if we knew it was going to be more expensive? How was it even possible that the revised bill be of a higher amount? It must be a mistake. Etc. By now, I was a seasoned staff and would normally have ended the call after 3 warnings. My dear readers, I did not do that with Mr. Nutty. I waited very patiently for him to run out of breath screaming and cussing, and in the lull, I simply said, "The bill was itemized as per your request, sir. Crazy boss tries to make me work more than anyone, but doesn't want to pay me accordingly." First, some info and backstory. Minimum wage in Brazil was our $954.00/month, $180.00/month nowadays. Back in May 2017 I started working in a company as a 2D designer intern. 2 months later I started working hourly, but with some benefits. I started making our $1,500.00/month, $280.00/month. 1 year has passed and I was put in commercial proposal for sales. I was one in a team of 3, me included. Just as I learned to make quotes, one of my colleagues quit his job to work for the government, so it was just me and my friend, let's call him Ed. Our boss was always a pain in the A, but we usually ignored her or complied. She was a real nitpicker. After some time, my manager started to make crazy complaints to me and my colleague and ask things like, "Sales are decreasing, so why have you put our prices down? Put the prices up again and charge for XYZ." I complied, but she called us for talks every week and always contradicted herself, when she told us to raise the prices, we did and she complained. Lowered our prices, she complained. In February of 2019 my coworker and friend Ed was fired for no apparent reason, but he wanted to quit for some time, so it was the best for him actually. Okay, things were great, right? Wrong. I was left in the department alone. Besides having to do the work of two, I had to teach someone to help me, so actually I was making my job, my friend Ed's and my boss. The best part was finding out that the girl I was teaching was making double my money for the same work hours, $560.00/month. The new girl had just started learning and could not be sending our clients our quotes for the jobs, but she complained about my teaching and everything she could to my manager. At the same time, my manager starts to tell me to stop holding the new girl's work back and to let her work freely. I was pissed, but here is where the fun starts. Cue malicious compliance. I now allowed the new girl to talk freely with our clients and do her work as I did mine. She insisted in asking for my advices on all matters, emails, doubts, projects and many more. Most of the time I helped, but it started to be so frequent that I started not helping anymore. Like, wasn't she being held back by me? FYI, my contract was about to end by May 2019, so there only was a couple months before it ended. Before my contract ended, I sat down with my boss so we could discuss my new payment and benefits. I was going to be salaried when my contract ended. I told them I wanted my salary to be at least what Ed did, $2.500.00 or $4.45.00/month. She neither agreed or denied. Just said, okay, we can settle this when your contract ends. When my contract had ended, I sat down again with manager and the financial/HR department. They wanted me to get paid our $2,000.00/month, $370.00, before taxes. I declined it. This was followed by this conversation. Boss, why are you refusing the payment? It's more than enough for someone your age, 19 by the time. HR, why are you declining our offer? Me. Because I am the only person in the department that knows how to work in every other department, plus both boss and new girl don't know how to do my work. Boss, that's not true. I know how to do your job. I'm better at it than you. Me, I don't think so. And if I'm going to get paid because of my age, not my knowledge, I'm not going to work here anymore. HR, you have a point, but why not just comply with our offer? Me, new girl, makes double my payment. She is 3 years older than me and knows not even half of what I tried to teach her. Both HR and boss, surprised Pikachu face, degree O degree. Boss, if you don't accept what we are willing to pay you, you don't have to keep coming. Me, okay. Then I will bring my uniform and my papers to you tomorrow. Boss, wait. You can't just go out like this. Me, I can. I don't have to work here if I don't have a contract and if I'm not going to get paid properly. HR, you can bring your papers tomorrow morning and we can discuss this later. Thanks OP. Boss, okay then. The next day I brought my papers, uniform and told my now ex-coworkers that I was leaving and got my messages and emails to be forwarded automatically to the new girl's email and phone number. I had approximately 150 negotiations ongoing and was responsible for 6 out of 8 affiliated factories that constantly sent me emails. I went to RH, gave them my papers, said goodbye to all the factory, around 150 employees, and finally went to my ex-boss and said my goodbyes. Boss, you know you're letting us down, don't you? Me, I do, that's why I'm not coming back. Boss, just F***K off. Me, gladly. The defeated look on her face made me smile for weeks. Nowadays I'm working as a civil engineer intern at a multinational company that pays me more, has health care, health insurance, price-to-earnings ratio, and oh boy, many more. Every once in a while I send an email from my new company to my ex-boss asking for quotes, but never buy there, I do that just to give them some trouble. Maybe I'm a bit of a jerk for doing this, but I don't care. Last month my ex-boss called me asking for some advice and joked about me coming back to the company and I gently refused. We laughed, but she was really anxious about it. I know that the company is doing okay, but many people were fired due to bad client services, bad prices, mistakes in quotes and flaws in executions. I'm happy and I'm expected to finish my college next year. Maybe I'll get hired by the place I'm working now, but who knows? Management complies with employees' demands. Reading some of these stories made me want to share this one, that started out beginning of this year, 2020, and the after effects are still in play and will be felt till end of this year. I work for a logistical company that specializes in the FMCG industry in New Zealand, and I am a semi-driver, truck and trailer, B-train, heavy goods vehicle, whatever it is called over the world. We have about 55 drivers spread out over 2 shifts. Now, the salary is not top of the market, but the work environment and conditions is amazing, we have awesome management and you could literally get away with just about anything, which is good for all the lazy, and dumb, pricks we have working here. We had an incentive scheme where we got paid a quarterly bonus of $250 just for looking after your truck, keeping it clean, no excessive speeding etc. Beginning of the year management decided to change the incentive/bonus scheme to a $50 weekly bonus, but there was a little more compliance required, which was part of our job anyway, like doing paperwork correctly, being punctual etc. Now immediately about 90% of the drivers were pissed off, because the $250 quarterly bonus was taken away, $1,000 total per year, and the weekly bonus was brought in, $2,600 per year. That resulted in just about everyone having a kinda slow strike and purposefully clocking in late, not doing paperwork etc. To give an idea how easy it was to comply, I did not change a single thing that I did before the new bonus came into play, and I have gotten my bonus every single week since it was implemented. Now about 3 months in, roughly by end April, things reached a peak. We were called in for a meeting and ripped a new one. The union got involved and a demand was made that no one was consulted about the change in bonus scheme, so they have to either change it back to the original quarterly bonus or the bonus has to be added in addition to the weekly bonus. Now the malicious compliance from management. As it's written in the contract, the bonus does not have to be paid out quarterly, it can be done annually as well, and as stipulated you have to be 90% compliant in your driving, paperwork etc. to get the bonus, and cause almost everyone did not comply for almost 3 months, it disqualified just about everyone from getting the $1,000 bonus this year. People were pissed, but they only had themselves to blame. Another direct result of that was management being way more strict with the non-complying drivers, once again, no effect on the few of us that already complied, and within the next week 7 of the worst drivers were let go for gross misconduct. I still laugh about it, thinking how dumb can some people be. If you made it to the end of the video, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share, and we will see you in the next video.